The first thing I noticed when I pulled into my driveway wasn't that my porch light was gone. It was that somebody wanted me to know they were watching. There was this little black camera mounted exactly where my old light used to be, angled down over my truck, my front steps, half my damn yard, like it had always belonged there. And for maybe 3 full seconds, I honestly wondered if I was losing my mind. Then I saw the wire. It ran clean across the siding and disappeared over the property line into my neighbor's garage. That's when my stomach dropped. I bought that house outside of Franklin, Tennessee, because it was quiet. Not fake quiet like those HOA neighborhoods where everybody smiles too hard and reports each other for mailbox colors. I mean real quiet. Tree frogs at night, wind through old cedar fences, the kind of neighborhood where people wave from tractors and leave each other alone. The place itself was nothing fancy, just an old one-story brick house built in the late 50s, but I loved it the second I saw it. The floors creaked, the plumbing complained every winter, and the kitchen looked like somebody lost a war in there sometime around 1983, but it felt honest. After my divorce, honesty mattered more than polished countertops. I spent almost 3 years fixing that place up room by room, paycheck by paycheck. Some nights I'd sit on the porch with a beer and stare at unfinished drywall like it was a retirement plan. The porch light was the first thing I replaced. Weird thing to care about maybe, but it mattered to me. It was this old bronze fixture I found at a salvage shop outside Murfreesboro, heavy as hell, probably original to some old farmhouse. Warm light, soft glow, nothing modern about it. Every night when I came home from work and saw that light on, it felt like proof that my life had finally calmed down a little. Then Leonard moved in next door. Leonard Kane, mid-50s maybe, silver beard trimmed with military precision, always wearing those expensive wraparound sunglasses that made it impossible to tell if he was looking at you or sizing you up. He introduced himself before the moving truck was even unloaded. Said he owned a private security consulting company in Nashville, mostly surveillance systems and commercial monitoring contracts. The way he talked about cameras was how some guys talk about religion. People think privacy matters, he told me the first week, standing right at the edge of my lawn like he already owned part of it. But privacy's basically nostalgia now. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. At first it was little stuff. He installed floodlights bright enough to land aircraft. Then came motion sensors. Then cameras. Cameras facing his driveway, his garage, his mailbox, his backyard. Then somehow, my side yard too. I started noticing them because he liked talking about them. Caught a raccoon last night. Saw the UPS guy toss your package. Your trash pickup came late Tuesday. That last one bothered me because I hadn't even been home Tuesday. One evening, he wandered over while I was replacing mulch around the porch and pointed at my light fixture. You ever think about upgrading that thing? He asked. To what? I said. Smart lighting. Integrated system. Remote access. Motion analytics. I remember laughing a little. Man, it's a porch light, not the Pentagon. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. That mindset's why people fall behind. That line stuck with me longer than it should have. A week later, I drove down to Birmingham for the weekend to help an old friend move his dad into assisted living. We spent 2 days hauling furniture, arguing about football, drinking cheap beer out of plastic cups like we were still 25. Honestly, it was the happiest I'd felt in months. Then I came home Sunday night and saw that camera bolted to my house. The old bronze light was gone completely. Not broken, not damaged. Removed carefully, like somebody performed surgery on my home while I was away. I stood in the driveway staring at it while the security light blinked red once, then blue. Watching me, recording me. My own front porch suddenly felt like somebody else's property. I walked straight next door and pounded on Leonard's door harder than I probably should have. He opened it halfway, holding a coffee mug like I was interrupting absolutely nothing important. What the hell is that on my house? I asked. He didn't even blink. Oh good, you saw it. That calmness, that's what made me angry. Not yelling, not defensiveness, just confidence. Like he genuinely believed he'd done me a favor. I removed your outdated fixture and installed a security node, he said. You're covered now. I stared at him for a second trying to process what I'd just heard. You broke onto my property. Relax, he said with this little shrug. The neighborhood benefits too. Then he pointed past me toward the street. Crime's moving outward from Nashville. People wait too long to adapt. Take it down, I told him. Tonight. He leaned against the doorframe, smiling just enough to make my blood pressure spike. You really should learn not to resist progress, Caleb. I barely slept that night. Every time headlights passed through the curtains, I kept thinking about that camera sitting out there watching my front porch like it belonged to somebody else now. There's a certain kind of anger that burns hot and fast, where you want to throw punches or start screaming, but this wasn't that. This was colder. He'd touched my house. Not by accident, not because he was confused about the property line, but because somewhere in his head he truly believed he had the right to. Around 2 in the morning I got out of bed, made coffee, and started writing everything down while it was fresh. Times, dates, exact wording, every little interaction I could remember since he moved in. My ex-wife used to joke that I documented life like a detective solving his own murder, but that habit ended up saving me more than once. By sunrise, I'd already photographed the camera from every angle. The mounting screws, the wiring, the serial number underneath the housing, the cable crossing onto his property. Hell, I even took pictures of the empty screw holes where my old light fixture had been attached, because something about that bothered me more than the camera itself. It looked violated, like somebody had ripped the front door off a memory. Around 8 that morning, I called a licensed electrician named Ray Donnelly, a guy I'd hired before when I rewired the kitchen. Ray was in his 60s, cigarette voice, suspenders, looked like every county mechanic rolled into one human being. He pulled into my driveway, took one look at the setup, and let out this low whistle. "Well," he said, scratching his beard, "that ain't legal." He climbed the ladder, checked the wiring, then looked back down at me. "He tapped directly into your electrical box. Didn't pull permits either." "Can he do that?" I asked. Ray laughed so hard, he almost missed a rung coming down the ladder. "Son, I can't even change somebody's ceiling fan without paperwork in this county." Then his expression changed. "You know this thing's storing footage somewhere, right?" I looked over toward Leonard's garage. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I know." Ray gave me the number for the county code compliance office before he left. "Call them before you touch anything," he said. "Trust me." So I did. Around noon, a county inspector named Denise Holloway showed up in an unmarked SUV carrying a clipboard thick enough to stop bullets. Denise had this calm energy that immediately made me feel better, like she'd already seen every flavor of human stupidity imaginable, and mine wasn't even making the top 10. She walked the property slowly, without saying much at first, took photos, measured distances, followed the cable line with narrowed eyes. Then she stopped near the property boundary and looked at me. "Did you authorize any of this?" "Absolutely not." "Did he enter your property with permission?" "No." She nodded once like that confirmed something important. Then she looked back at the camera. "Mr. Kane's company registered with the county as a commercial installer," she said. "Which means he definitely knows this violates code." There was something almost funny about that. Leonard wasn't some clueless guy mounting a Ring camera too close to the fence. He knew exactly what he was doing. Denise asked if I had previous interactions with him regarding surveillance equipment, and suddenly all those weird comments about my trash pickup and deliveries started sounding less casual. I told her everything. She wrote for almost 20 straight minutes. Before leaving, she handed me a case number. "Do not remove the device yourself yet," she said. "And if he contacts you, document it." "Is this serious?" I asked. Denise looked back at the camera one last time. "Mr. Walker, unauthorized surveillance on private residential property gets serious real fast. That should have been the end of it. But people like Leonard never think they're wrong. They think they're smarter than consequences." 3 days later, I found an envelope slid halfway under my front door. No stamp, no address. Inside was a letter from some downtown Nashville attorney written in that polished corporate language designed to sound professional while quietly insulting your intelligence. According to the letter, Leonard had installed the camera as part of a temporary neighborhood safety assessment initiative. They claimed the installation was intended to provide expanded visual protection coverage for my property while he evaluated local security vulnerabilities. Like he was Batman or something. Then came my favorite part. They offered to provide me access to selected footage for transparency purposes. Selected footage, meaning this man had apparently been recording my house for days and now wanted gratitude. But the real audacity came at the end of the letter. If I wished to have the system professionally removed, they were willing to split removal costs 50-50 as a gesture of goodwill between neighbors. I actually laughed out loud reading that. Not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe somebody could be that arrogant and still remember to breathe. I called Denise immediately. She sounded deeply unimpressed. Do not respond to the attorney, she said. We're already escalating the case. Apparently, once county legal got involved, things moved fast. Faster than Leonard expected. 2 days later, another county vehicle showed up, this time with an electrical compliance officer and someone from municipal legal services. They spent nearly an hour documenting everything. One of them opened a panel near the camera and muttered, "Jesus Christ," under his breath. Turns out Leonard hadn't just attached a device to my home. He'd altered the electrical load without permit approval, crossed service boundaries between properties, and installed commercial-grade surveillance equipment onto privately owned residential infrastructure that didn't belong to him. In plain English, he'd screwed himself spectacularly. That afternoon, I saw him standing in his driveway yelling into his phone while pacing circles around his truck. For the first time since I met him, he looked rattled. Not angry. Nervous. There's a difference. Angry people still think they're in control. Nervous people realize control's slipping away. A formal county notice arrived 48 hours later. Multiple violations. Unauthorized electrical modification. Property damage. Unlawful surveillance installation. Failure to obtain permits. The notice ordered complete removal within 14 days along with restoration of the original fixture at Leonard's expense using a licensed contractor approved by the county. There was also language about potential civil penalties if compliance wasn't met. I must have read that letter 6 times sitting at my kitchen table while rain tapped against the windows. The crazy thing is, I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Mostly I felt tired. Because once somebody crosses a line like that, you stop looking at them like a difficult neighbor and start seeing them for what they are. Somebody who genuinely believes boundaries only apply to other people. The next week turned the whole neighborhood weird. People started hearing about it. Small towns and suburban counties run on gossip like trucks run on gasoline. Mrs. Abernathy from across the street suddenly found reasons to check her mailbox every time I stepped outside. My neighbor Eli wandered over one evening pretending he needed to borrow hedge clippers just so he could ask, "So, did Leonard really install a camera on your house?" Even the mailman seemed unusually interested in my front porch. Meanwhile, Leonard stopped making eye contact completely. No more smug comments. No more speeches about technology. He stayed inside most days except for quick trips to his garage, and every now and then I'd catch him staring toward my porch through the blinds. Like he still couldn't understand how this had blown up in his face. Then came the day the county scheduled the compliance removal, and honestly, that morning felt stranger than I expected. Because deep down I knew this had stopped being about a porch light a long time ago. The county scheduled the removal for a Thursday morning, just after 9. I remember because I barely touched my coffee and kept checking the clock like I was waiting for surgery results. The whole situation had started feeling surreal by then, like one of those neighborhood stories people tell at barbecues that sounds exaggerated until somebody pulls out photos. Around 8:30, a white contractor van rolled up in front of the house, followed by a county inspection vehicle. 2 contractors stepped out carrying ladders and tool bags while Denise climbed out of the SUV holding the same clipboard she'd had the first day, calm as ever. The sky was overcast, humid enough to make your shirt stick to your back, and the whole street had that weird stillness neighborhoods get when everybody's pretending not to watch something they're absolutely watching. Curtains moved. Garage doors cracked open. Mrs. Abernathy was suddenly watering flowers that definitely did not need watering. Denise walked up my driveway and handed me a copy of the final compliance order. "You won't need to do anything," she said. "Just stay available in case we have questions." Then she glanced toward Leonard's house. He's been informed. Right on cue, his garage door opened. Leonard stepped out wearing jeans and a black polo, jaw tight enough to crack teeth. No sunglasses this time. Funny how people stop dressing like movie villains once real consequences show up. One of the contractors extended the ladder toward the porch, while another started documenting the existing wiring setup with photos. Leonard marched halfway across his lawn before stopping at the property line. "This is completely unnecessary," he snapped. Denise didn't even look up from her clipboard. "The county disagrees. That system increased neighborhood safety." "That system," she replied calmly, "was attached to property you do not own." He looked at me then, and for the first time since all this started, I saw something underneath the arrogance. Not remorse. More like disbelief. Like he honestly couldn't process that someone had told him no and the universe backed it up. "You could have handled this like a conversation," he said. I actually laughed at that. Could have handled it like a conversation. The man removed a fixture from my home while I was out of town and installed surveillance equipment in its place. And now suddenly, he wanted neighborly communication. You lost the right to that conversation when you touched my house, I told him. The contractors got to work a few seconds later. One climbed the ladder and began disconnecting the camera wiring while the other unpacked a replacement fixture box from the van. And there it was. My old bronze porch light. They'd recovered it from Leonard during the compliance process. Still wrapped carefully in newspaper. I didn't even realize how tense I'd been until I saw it. Sounds stupid maybe, getting emotional over a light fixture, but that thing represented years of rebuilding my life after everything fell apart. My marriage, my finances, my sense of stability. That porch light was one of the first decisions I made completely for myself after the divorce, and seeing somebody remove it without permission had felt personal in a way I couldn't fully explain. While the contractor worked, Denise recorded video documentation for the county file. Leonard stood frozen near his driveway watching every second like somebody dismantling his ego piece by piece. Then came the moment I think finally broke him. One contractor held up the disconnected camera and asked Denise, "Evidence photos complete?" She nodded. "Go ahead." The contractor dropped the camera into a hard plastic evidence container with a loud clack that echoed down the quiet street. Something about that sound felt final. Leonard muttered under his breath, "This is insane." Denise finally looked directly at him. "Mr. Kane, you're fortunate the homeowner chose civil compliance over criminal trespassing charges." Silence. Real silence. Even the birds seemed to shut up for a second. Leonard looked at me again, probably expecting some smug reaction, but honestly, I didn't feel smug anymore. Mostly I just felt done. Tired of people who confuse intelligence with entitlement. Tired of this modern idea that convenience automatically outranks consent. About 30 minutes later, the old bronze light flickered back on for the first time in weeks. Warm yellow glow against the brick, soft and steady exactly the way I remembered it. One of the contractors smiled and said, "There you go." Simple as that. No dramatic music. No cheering crowd. Just my porch looking like home again. The county vehicles pulled away not long after, and the neighborhood slowly returned to pretending it wasn't invested in every second of the drama. Leonard went inside without another word. A month later, I heard through Eli that Leonard's security company lost a commercial contract with a local medical office after rumors about the investigation spread. Apparently, businesses get nervous when surveillance experts start installing cameras on property they don't own. Can't imagine why. He moved out that winter. No goodbye, no apology. Just a moving truck one cold Saturday morning and an empty house by sunset. Sometimes I still think about him, though, which probably sounds strange. Because part of me wonders if people like Leonard actually believe they're helping. Maybe somewhere along the line he convinced himself that control and safety were the same thing. That if technology allows something, morality automatically catches up later. And honestly, that idea scares me more than the camera ever did. These days my porch light still comes on every evening around dusk. Same warm glow. Same quiet street. Sometimes I sit out there with a beer after work listening to cicadas and thinking about how easy it is for people to justify crossing lines once they stop respecting the word no. But I'll tell you one thing, nobody's touched that fixture again. So now I'm curious what you would have done in my situation. Would you have called the county like I did? Or handled Leonard a little more personally before the lawyers got involved? And do you think people like him are actually trying to protect communities, or just looking for excuses to control them? Let me know in the comments. Because honestly, I still go back and forth on that myself.